Let the whole congregation shout hallelujah. Pastor James is the only congregation in his church. If only the chairs could talk, at least he would not have to play the role of call and response by himself. How did this get to this? A church that once had 100,000 worshippers. What happened? I can tell you this. James was once a true man of God until he shook hands with the devil. When James started his church 9 years ago, the number of those who attended the service fluctuates between 5 and 2 members. Even those 2 members were chronic latecomers, the type that only go to church for closing prayer. The only consistent member was him, his wife, and son. After each church service, the offering and tithe combined was not enough to buy the church a padlock. His frustration at that time was not of this earth, it came straight from Mercury. Even outside in meetings and events, he was often disregarded and disrespected unlike other successful pastors. There was a time he saw his role model, Pastor Alabi, the owner of the biggest church in the world. He tried to make use of this rare opportunity to meet him, but he was cruelly pushed aside halfway there. He was so embarrassed he felt like an housefly in front of an elephant. He had prayed and fasted to be like these pastors and have huge congregation like them, but nothing. It kept getting worse every day, but one day, a solution suddenly came from an unexpected person, his once close friend Benson, whom he started his church with. They both hustled on the streets for years and started their ministry in their one-room apartment. But after a conflict, Benson went his way, and in just 3 years, he became one of the most popular and richest pastors. Since then, whenever the two met in conferences, Benson always ignored him until that very day when he approached him and offered to make him be on the same level as his role model, Pastor Alabi. James looked at him with a raised brow and asked, "How can that be possible?" But Benson just shrugged his shoulders and replied, "How was it possible for me? Think with your head, James." Truly, James thought deep and believed him. Benson was indeed like him few years ago, but he's a famous pastor now, someone people call celebrity pastor. This can only mean one thing: it is not ordinary. At what cost? James asked. At a cost that will cost him nothing, Benson replied. So, Benson took James to see a man which he referred to as his boss. James recognized the man immediately as another very popular pastor, Pastor Neptune of a big international church. Pastor Neptune seemed to scrutinize him for a minute and then asked if he had heard about the Hellfire Club. Hellfire Club? Yes, sir, I have. Benson briefed me on the way here, James replied. Good. Looks like you're ready to attend tonight's party. Neptune nodded and smiled. At 10 p.m., on their way to this party, Benson sprayed a perfume in James' direction and he immediately felt dizzy. He slumped on the chair and fell asleep. When he woke up, he met himself in the middle of an initiation party. A group of well-known faces surrounded him while he lay on the ground. He slowly stood up, looking at the familiar figures in front of him. Who would have thought? He said to himself. You too, Pastor Mars? Wait a minute, isn't that Pastor Jupiter? His mind was messed up, but he couldn't speak out. During the initiation, he was presented with a contract with a party B, who was referred to as the master of the earth. They took a drop of his blood and the deal was sealed. He was then handed a box with an handkerchief inside. They told him that, since his job had been to win souls for God, his role in the club remains the same, just that from then on, the person he will be winning souls for is that master of the earth he just signed a contract with. All he needed to do was raise and wave the handkerchief in the air during church services, and the soul-consuming demons in it will do their jobs. James got home that night and had sleepless nights. He knew he had entered into something he can't get out of, but since there was no cost or repercussions, he soon calmed his mind and readied himself for a new life. The next Sunday, James entered his church and was surprised. He met hundreds of people there to worship. Even his wife and son were confused and wondered where all these people came from. The service that day turned James' life around, and in just 2 years, he had surpassed Benson and most of the other pastors like him in fame and wealth. He commanded respect everywhere he went to. He ate with kings and queens and presidents. Famous people dominated his church, and he built the tallest and biggest church in the country. He was now known as Pastor Miraculous because he performed miracles like no other, always raising and waving his handkerchief in the air, and whenever he did, miracles happened. Nothing seemed impossible for him to do. In 4 years, he boasted of more than 100,000 church members. He was on fire. He even got 3 private jets to celebrate his wife's pregnancy. Everything was going well for him until one day, when he screamed and woke up from a really bad dream. The dream terrified him so much that he refused to sleep afterwards. That day was Sunday, and as morning came, he prepared for the service and went to church along with his family. But when he climbed the pulpit to begin the service, what he saw terrified him even more. It was exactly like his dream. He looked at his thousands of congregation, and no one seemed to look alive among them. They all seemed like mummies and zombies. They were all bones and dried skin, like their souls had been sucked out of them. Has he been pastoring over dead congregation? The most terrifying part of this was when he looked at his wife and son, and they looked even worse, like they had been dead for years. His mind couldn't process nor take what was happening, and he ran out of the church as the members looked confused, while some chased after him. Pastor James! Pastor James! But he never looked back. My dear viewers, this is a plea to you. Don't just watch. Be a part of my growth and subscribe to my channel. Like this video and share it. Thank you very much. When he ran far enough, he called Benson, but Benson had nothing to say to him and told him to go see Pastor Neptune. When he told Neptune what he saw, he just laughed and told him it was a normal thing for everyone involved. It's because all their souls have been harvested. They are dead even though they look alive physically. And you are seeing this because the demons in the handkerchief are exhausted. You need to renew their powers and bring in more new members in your church for them to harvest. When James heard this, he was shocked and afraid. He said angrily, "Those are over 100,000 members they fed on. Are they gluttons? I'll be careful if I were you. The master takes no disrespect." Neptune scolded James immediately. "What about my wife and son?" James asked. "They are gone too. Hopefully, they will be with you for a few months more before their bodies give up on their soulless beings. It is what you bargained for." "Most people are okay with this little sacrifice. I don't see why you are not," Neptune replied him. "How do I rectify it?" "There is no rectifying it. The only option is to renew the power in the handkerchief, so you don't have to return back to square one." Upon hearing this, James became afraid and asked how to renew the power. But when he had to dedicate his unborn child to the devil, that was when he knew what fear was. He felt different emotions: anger, fear, shame, sadness, and confusion at the same time. If he doesn't dedicate his child, he would return back to square one. Everyone prays to go from grass to grace, but he would fall from grace to grass. What a pity. As he went home, his mind was muddled. His child will soon be born, and he has just 10 days after his birth to dedicate him to the devil, after which he could only perish. He locked himself in his room for days, but on the day his child was born, instead of being in the hospital, he sat in the middle of his huge church and stared at the ceiling. His church was indeed beautiful, one of a kind, but it was not empty, also one of a kind. He had denounced the devil few hours ago and had broken the contract. That was the only gift he thought he could give his child, who would soon see the world, and the only way he felt he could atone for his actions. He knew the consequence of breaking the contract would be great, but he was ready to pay the price. He looked up as he saw the bricks of his huge church, one he had witnessed being laid brick by brick few years ago, now crashing down on him with full force. In his last moment, He saw a vision of him climbing rough steps to reach a smooth gold land ahead. He was sweating profusely and exhausted. When he was about to take his final step, his foot about to touch the gold land, he got distracted by the grassland by the side and then tripped. He fell straight onto the grassland, which in turn opened up to form a deep abyss he fell into. Before the crashing bricks got to him, he shouted for the last time with all his power, "Let the congregation shout hallelujah!" And then he responded, "Hallelujah," as he took his final deep breath. The devil has no peace of mind. He cannot give you what he doesn't have. Never make a deal with the devil. He will give you a grain and take the warehouse. Do you think James made the right decision in the end? Let me know your thoughts about James in the comment section. This story is a series. The first part is called Four Brothers Who Made Deal with the Devil. The link to watch it is somewhere on the screen right now or will be at the end of this video. This is the second part. The third part will be uploaded soon. I upload at least once a week. Make sure to check for new video uploads from me. If you love this story, you will love other videos on my channel. Make sure to check them out. Thank you for watching. See you in my next video and bye bye.